This is the Assistant Directors Guild podcast. My name is Michelle Reynolds, co-director of Real-Time Media, and I'm here with Yolanda Sangaro, second AD. We're here to discuss job sharing as a solution to the current demands of the film and TV industry. This podcast is sponsored by Chase DeVere, who without them, this wouldn't be possible. So, Yolanda, it's lovely to see you today, and and thanks for having me on today. I suppose we should start probably by telling people who we are.
Yeah.
Do you want to go first?
Um, sure. So as Michelle said, my name is Yolanda Sangaro, and I am a second assistant director and member of the Assistant Directors Guild. And I'm also the job share champion for assistant directors.
Lovely. And my name is Michelle Reynolds. I am a co-director of a company called Real-Time Media, as you know. And Real-Time, we are a training and consultancy company working with the TV and film industry, looking at flexible working and sort of good work, better, healthier ways of working so that we can have a healthier, happier, more inclusive workforce. And a lot of our work is around this idea of job sharing as a way of building flexibility, the ability for people to stay in the industry who have other stuff in their lives. So yeah, and we've been doing that really probably since 2018, but most seriously since about 2021. So I guess maybe we can start the chat about talking about what do we mean by job sharing, and I'd
Yeah.
be really interested to hear from you about why you were so interested. I mean, we've been working together for a little while now,
Yeah.
so it's really maybe I can sort of start and then you can come in.
Sure.
So job sharing kind of isn't really rocket science, I suppose. It kind of is. It does what it says on the tin, but the idea of job sharing is that it allows it's sort of the most practical form of flexible working in an industry where there is no time off. We started Real-Time Media. It's run by two telly mums, because after having our kids, we just couldn't do the hours, the crazy locations. We couldn't give everything that the job demanded and be present for our kids, which is why we set it. And I sort of tried lots of different forms of flexible working. I worked 4 days a week. I worked 4 days split over 5, all kinds of weird things. But the truth was, I mostly ended up working for free on a Friday because there was always a big drama or a big something kind of kicked off. So this idea of job sharing means that at its most basic form, two people share one job, and it means that might be by splitting the week. It might be by doing week on, week off. It might be by splitting the day, and we'll talk about that later. But essentially, it allows people to have real time off because the production is getting a seamless service because there's somebody else to cover. And there's lots of benefits that go with that, I feel, and that's something we can talk about. But I think one of the big reasons I think we're both so passionate about it is because of the way the industry is set up and seeming to be more and more as schedules get increasingly tighter, budgets get increasingly tighter. People are working these long hours and people are either burning out or forced out of an industry.
Hmm.
And I think that job sharing is um, a really practical, useful tool
Hmm.
to kind of address this. But I mean, we've spoken a lot in the past about your experience of being a second, being a third, and your experience of the industry in the UK as opposed to Canada where you trained.
Hmm.
But why do you think burnout is such a pressing issue in our industry, and especially for ADs?
Yeah, I'm going to answer that, but before that, I just wanted to say, Michelle, I just think your work is incredible. What you've been doing for us, I just you're tireless and you just do such an amazing work, and I just can't get over how much you've advanced job sharing for everybody. And I just wanted to say thank you very
Thanks,
much, and I
May.
want everyone to know and to know that about Michelle.
Thank you.
Um, so why the question? Why the
Why is burnout such
yeah,
an issue
I
for
think
us?
I what I would like to talk specifically is about the role of second assistant directors, because as very experienced seconds have mentioned as well, experienced seconds who have worked for the last 25 years as a second assistant director, they've said that the role itself has become untenable. So it used to be 25 years ago that um, there wasn't email. It was more about letters. The post was dealt by production office, and suddenly now we're dealing with flooded inboxes that we have to,
It's
you
an
know,
always on culture, right?
it's just become it's got to a point where it's become pretty untenable, and the second assistant directors who manage to do the role are ones that are okay sleeping 4 or 5 hours because they have the genetics to sleep 4 or 5 hours a day, um, or even less sometimes, and they can cope with that. And then you get someone like me with Spanish genes, and unfortunately that doesn't quite work as
Where's the
well.
siesta? No,
Well,
I'm sorry,
I'm not a
that's
siesta
me.
person actually. In that respect, I am quite British, but no, and I have lived. I'm a Spanish Londoner, to be honest. But in that respect, but still, it just somehow I just can't cope with those kind of
But I
hours.
think who can
Mm.
really? Because I mean, it. I think these kind of hours and these kind of demands whittle the workforce down to a type of person who can give everything
Mm.
to the role. They don't have other commitments. If they have a family, they're not the
A lot
primary
of them have
care. Yeah,
families,
but
but
they won't be the primary caregiver. I mean, how much do they see their
exactly
kids? Of
no.
course, and if they have any kind of disability, neurodivergency, all these things really limits the kind of person who can take on this role,
Hmm.
because it is all encompassing. And you know we do our jobs because we love our industry, we love our
Mm.
job, but this
Yeah.
but there's always on culture of, not only have you got email, but you've got maybe 3, 4, 5 WhatsApp groups going at the same
Yeah.
time, and 2 phones, and your radio, and then
Mm.
it's bonkers.
Yeah.
And until we can sort out working hours and a more functional workplace environment, then something like job sharing is a slight address to these kind of, well, these sort of unsustainable ways of
Yeah.
working. Um, I'd be really interested to talk to you because obviously, we've spoken in the past about your kind of transition, not only from third to second, but also from Canada to the UK, those two different
Mm.
industries. Um, do you want to talk a little bit about your experience there and how, and particularly
Yeah.
about kind of
In
burnout?
terms of
Yeah.
with a focus on job sharing. So the interesting thing is that here in the UK there is that culture of um sacrifice, and if you're not fully sacrificed in the role, then you don't really deserve to be in the film industry. And there's that ingrained culture here, which I had when I lived in London before breaking in properly. And then, of course, I got to Canada, and in Vancouver, I was very, I was very dedicated. I was very sacrificed, and everybody's like, chillax. We are
What are you
we
doing?
are making entertainment. We're having fun. So I was just like, oh yeah, they've got a point. And and eventually I learned to enjoy it and just be less sort of like, everything was in there. I mean, I just I loved it. But it was very hard work too, but at the same time, because you also get thrown in the deep end, training is always an issue as an assistant director. And yet, but the environment was completely different. And did I answer the question?
Well, I'm interested to kind of say, so when you got to the UK,
Oh yeah.
it was just after COVID or around that kind of
No,
time, right?
it was 2018, 2 years before.
Okay, so but going in, and then you were stepped up quite quickly, I think, in that
So
kind of.
yeah, so what I did, because I started in the film industry as an older person, because I turned to film industry later in my life. I had this mistaken idea, which I don't recommend, by the way, of which a lot of people have actually when I've spoken to people who want to break into the film industry, which is I wanted to speed up my the process to getting to second. It was my dream to become a second assistant director. And I saw the opportunity post COVID because, we had that huge crunch.
Oh my goodness, it was bonkers, that
Yeah.
boom, and
And it was just
people.
this boom, and there were productions that just were not finding seconds. I was completely green. Not only was I green second, I was also, because the role of second AD, by the way, is completely different to the role of third assistant director,
Of
which I
course.
did have a lot of experience as a third. And more in Canada than here, but yeah, but I did have a lot of experience as a third. And so the role is completely different as a second. And God, you know what? I'm having memory lapse because I just had I'm sorry, you're gonna have to edit this. I had pneumonia, so for some reason, I'm having
Don't worry.
post-pneumonia memory lapses. I'm sorry.
Don't worry. Don't take. Do
Seriously, okay, take your time, Yolanda.
you have
Yeah,
a glass of water or a drink of water or something?
it's terrible, but I don't know why I keep having these.
No, that's okay. Well, let's talk about so when you approach for this role as a second
Mm,
in this post-COVID kind of boom. I mean, I remember you saying, you were quite honest with them, saying, "Okay, I'll go for
yes.
it, but I'm
Yeah.
quite green."
Yeah.
Um,
I did say, look, I'm green. Are you like? But this was me being ambitious, like saying, oh, here's my opportunity to jump up. And
but
in
anybody would, I
hindsight,
think.
yeah, in hindsight, I should have just stayed as a third because that's where I was confident. And so I jumped as a completely green second.
Yeah,
And it felt like learning. I always say this, so I repeat myself if many people have heard it, but I always say this. It felt like learning to drive on a racetrack. That's
yeah,
what it feels like. And so, of course, everybody are experienced drivers. They know what they're doing. And they just expected me to
catch
get in
up.
the car and race
Yeah,
properly on the racetrack. And of course, I was just overwhelmed,
yeah,
completely overwhelmed. And at first, I just wasn't sure. I thought they were going to give me a list of things to do. And of course, nobody does that. So then I'm just blindly going about it, and people are losing faith, and they're losing confidence in you, and just it just kind of it's a snowball. It was pretty awful, but it was a situation that it just was not sustainable. And then thankfully, it was a time when everybody was so desperate for seconds that I was able to jump to another one immediately. And then I was a crowd second, and on there I was. So I was a crowd second on that, and the prep was absolutely fine. I was in my element. I learned a lot more because I didn't want the same thing to happen as the first time. So of course I learned a lot more about what I needed to do, and the prep went really well. Then we went into production, and suddenly we're going into these whole not sleeping.
yeah.
So it was just kind of like I was sleeping literally 3-4 hours a night, and I'm learning and I'm training. I'm learning to drive on a racetrack.
On no
I'm not
sleep.
sleeping. I don't have the genes to sleep 3-4 hours. I just don't have those genes. And of course, it just kind of it just became another huge trauma actually, and it was a very dangerous drive home.
Yes.
Um,
Well, this
um,
is the thing because you were saying I don't have the genes to sleep through it. I'm not sure anybody does. I mean, I've lost count of
some
the
people do.
number.
I mean, a lot of
Uh,
experienced seconds do. They manage because I've spoken to them, and they say, yeah,
But to an extent, because I've lost count of the people I've spoken about saying I fell asleep at the wheel on my way
mm,
home. I haven't seen my family. My home life is going down the toilet. Whatever it is, I think it's sustainable to a certain point and
mm,
then no further.
yeah,
And I think that's why. And the data, film and TV charities, Looking Glass reports, they show this. They show that there is a mental health crisis,
mm,
but also it's about, I mean, for me, I think it's about making healthy and safe decisions.
yeah,
And, when you are under this colossal pressure,
yeah,
and it is just making entertainment, but the pressure is real.
yeah.
And having 3 hours sleep, then
And change losing locations, and
right,
suddenly I
something's
had
got
all
to
these
give.
extras, all the supporting artists were um fitted for costumes in a certain area, and suddenly we had a different, which is typical in ADing as well. You have huge changes, suddenly you
All
have
the
to
time.
deal with the change. That's part of the role. So but when you're training, it just becomes, so that's where my passion for job sharing comes in, because I want to do a good job. I want to do a quality job. So for me, job sharing is quality work. It's not about less work. It's about quality work
Yes.
as a trainee second AD.
Yeah. And
That's what it means to me.
and that's really interesting as well because I think the fact that you were kind of learning on the job when you were having this experience. I
Mm,
think having that peer support
mm,
of somebody else who
yeah,
you can be vulnerable
yeah,
to without having to go up to your first, but be able
mm,
to kind of go on the phone quickly. I thought we'd discuss this, and now they're
mm,
saying that, am I going crazy
yeah,
because I've only had 3 hours sleep? Or actually,
exactly,
what happened here? And having somebody who's on your side,
exactly.
who's not going to throw you under the bus,
Yeah,
is super important. So yeah, I think job sharing is great for the physical managing of time, and
mm,
just it's such a massive job,
yeah,
as well as having that buddy.
mm,
I think
completely.
as
Yeah.
freelancers, we're so isolated in a funny way. We come together and work in teams, but we're all our own little person, and it's very rare that we have some somebody with us to kind of support, and to that we can be open about, it's always about doing your best, and if you mess up then you'll never work again, or somebody's ready to jump in. We're bred to compete.
Mm-hmm.
But actually, this idea of job sharing, and the communities that are now coming up around job sharing for ADs, it's much more supportive. It's much more, it's championing each other,
Mm-hmm.
which is mentally a much healthier space to be in as well,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
It's really interesting.
Exactly.
So, I mean, so we talked a little bit about kind of I guess, the workplace culture and environment in TV and film. And I think the reason why that is a problem is if we look forward about sustaining experienced, healthy crew who are making the best content, something has to give, something has
Mm-hmm.
to change. And I think these, I mean, this is a tale as old as time, right? But these long hours leading to kind of mentally unhealthy crew, stressed out, unsafe people, it does not. It means that people are looking at film and TV and going, I'm not sure that is a sustainable career choice for me. If I one day want to have a family, if I one day want to be able to pay a mortgage, and the industry has been so tumultuous with the strikes and with COVID
Mm-hmm.
and all that kind of stuff, I wonder how many people are actually going, do you know what? I think I can put all my eggs in the film and TV basket. So I think there needs to be a change, a shift in the way we look at how we crew up and how we work our
But I
people.
don't think I don't think many people see that until they experience it.
Yeah, because it's a dream, right?
It's a dream.
But I don't know. I think the youth, like the people that I see coming up, they don't want to work like that anymore. Like the Gen Z,
Yeah,
millennial,
Gen
whatever.
Z, yeah.
They
They have a
don't want to
different.
work the hours that we want to
Mm.
work. They want to have, and they see that actually, I can be in my kitchen table,
Mm.
with my phone, making
Yeah.
content that's seen by
Yeah.
millions. Why am I
True.
busting my balls
True.
and working 18-hour days? No,
Beep.
but yeah, but you're right. Why am I doing that
Yeah.
to kill myself? And so people don't. I think the attraction of the glamour,
Mm.
is wearing a little thin.
And the glamour is very attractive at the beginning, but it lasts, I think it lasts a maximum of 6 months. You get conditioned, your brain gets conditioned, and then you feel like it's the most normal job in the world,
And
you know?
and we do, as I said, we love making TV and film. We love the people. We love the excitement and the camaraderie. And when the team's all working together, it's the best place to be
Mm.
in the world. And we're so grateful for the opportunity to do that. But
Mm.
I think more and more, we're running on that currency of gratitude. I can't complain. I can't ask to work in a different way.
Mm.
I'm so lucky
Yeah.
to be in this
You
job
can't
that
rock
I
the
can't
boat.
possibly rock the boat.
Yeah.
Exactly. So it's a
So there's a lot of
tricky.
silence, for sure. There's a lot of silence. There's a lot of frustrated people who are silent,
Yes.
and then we hear about it in the surveys.
Yes.
And that's when
In
everybody gets a
anonymous
total shock. I
anonymous
remember
surveys.
Production Guild doing a survey and then saying, I had no idea. They were just shocked to hear how upset people really were about this circumstances
Yeah.
in many roles. But we have to be careful about rocking the boat, because then it's freelance, so you have to you then have to be careful not to.
But I think it's changing, Yolanda. So
I
there's
hope
always
so.
been, I remember when I started having conversations about job sharing,
Mm.
so I come from an unscripted background, and it was kind of a thing. People kind of knew about it. And then when I started working in drama, in HETV was where we started at Screen Skills.
Yeah.
People said, oh, it couldn't work in drama. It could never work. There was so much fear, and also just, I think, conditioning. We talked about being conditioned about this is the way it works,
Mhm.
and this is the way it's always been, and it has to be like this, and it couldn't possibly work for makeup artists. It couldn't possibly work for ADs, right? And it has worked, and we're showing that it
Yeah.
works, and it just takes a little bit of bravery. And I think the new set of HODs moving up do understand that if they want to have a healthy, really productive and diverse workforce, you need to work in a different way, which is
Yeah.
why it's so exciting. And
But
And
it's not really that revolutionary
no,
either. Like Carlos Fidel says, it's not about changing the way we work. It's about making it online,
right.
communicating online, or and and it's private because Google Docs has a way of making it very private, so it's still very
You're
private.
absolutely right. And I think that's the switch. It's kind
Mm.
of going, actually, if you have worked in an A team and a B team, if you've switched teams between blocks, if you've
Mm.
worked shifts,
Mhm.
you are, if you've got dailies coming
Mm.
in, you are to an extent job sharing. You are
Mhm.
handing over information. And a lot of
Completely.
my role when I'm consulting and talking to productions and HODs about bringing in this practice is kind of going, actually, it's not so weird.
Mhm.
And you're probably already doing it to an
Mhm.
extent. And that's what's been really exciting. So with job sharing and for ADs particularly, I remember when I started talking to the AD Guild and we had I think we did a webinar and we had group of people really interested, but a lot of people saying, I love this idea, but I just don't know how it can work. And we've
Mhm.
gone from that to now placing, I think we've placed 5 pairs of seconds. So the seconds are really leading the charge.
Well done. I
Um,
love it.
uh, on massive productions and on features. Um, and they are finding out how to navigate this idea of a job share as a second.
Mhm.
As you mentioned, Carlos Fidel in Berlin has been a massive champion and
Amazing.
a massive inspiration to
Mhm.
us because he's been job sharing the second role on huge films and TV
Huge. Yeah.
productions in
And
Berlin.
it's really spread. It's become quite normalized in Berlin
Yes, and he's been so
through
generous
circumstance.
with
Yeah.
his knowledge as well.
Yeah.
So really sort of taking inspiration from him, learning from our brave second ADs who have been able to give it a go.
Mhm.
And by kind of gathering these case studies, we're able to kind of start going to productions, going to first and saying, look, this is how they did it. And look at the testimonials that we're
Mhm.
getting. And it's
Yeah.
positive. And not only is it great for the job share
It's
pair?
raising the first assistant director.
Yeah. But it's not just good for the job share pair, it's good for the whole team.
Yeah.
You know, so
Mhm.
so that's the exciting thing. So maybe we start talking in practice about how job sharing can practically work,
Mhm.
uh, specifically for seconds, because
Yeah.
that's where we have our experience.
Yep.
But I'd also be interested, and this is where my lack of specific knowledge, I suppose, I've never been an AD, but how it could maybe work for thirds, how it could maybe work for firsts,
Mhm.
you know, because
Yeah.
I I honestly don't think there is a role in TV or film that can't be shared.
I agree.
I think there are definitely
Yeah,
roles that are
there's ways. We
easier
just have to find a creative way of doing it. It's just
and the
about being
will.
creative, and we are creative people,
We're
and
creative problem solvers.
we're
That's what we
creative
do.
problem solvers. We're constantly doing that. So it's just like Carlos Fidel says. We just have to apply that to the job share.
Exactly.
We just have to apply creative problem solving to the job share as well to make it work.
So we've had through the Screen Skills program. So I suppose I should go back a little bit. So the reason that job sharing has been able to start taking off in high-end TV to start with was
Hmm.
because Screen Skills took a chance
Yeah,
on me
we
on
love
my
screen
production.
skills. We
Yeah,
love
go on
screen
Screen Skills.
skills. Go on.
To start funding the handover day for a job share. So what
Hmm.
that would look like is, Yolanda, if you and I were going to job share, maybe you'd work Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. I'd work Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. So we'd
Hmm.
both be in together on that Wednesday.
Hmm.
And Screen Skills will refund what
Hmm.
is essentially that sixth day,
Yeah.
so that we get proper time together and the production gets a seamless coverage and they're basically getting 6 days for the price of 5.
Hmm.
So it's a real win-win.
Yeah.
And and we started off in 2021 and since then we've placed 80 pairs, or a little bit over 80 pairs on all sorts of high-end TV productions in all sorts of roles. So I think, most obviously you'd have people working in costume, makeup,
Mm.
art
When I
department.
first heard about this, graphic designers were doing it in 2018.
Yes, and graphics is one of those
Mhm.
departments that have really kind of
Mm.
taken off with it.
Yeah.
But also seconds,
Mhm.
second ADs, and I would say also locations, camera, lots of first and second assistant camera, lots in post.
Mhm.
But for me, one of the exciting things is getting those seconds on board, and there've been many different ways. they've made it work. But I'm just having a look at my notes because I can never remember the names of all the productions. But we've had job sharing second ADs on Protection, Funny Woman, Death Valley, a feature called Wind of Change, which was through the Warner Brothers program, which we can talk about as
Yeah.
well.
Love Warner Brothers for doing this.
And we've just placed a pair on the new series of Supercell, which is really exciting. And I think the majority of those pairs have split the week. Oh, sorry, I just bashed. So the majority of those pairs have split the week in the way that we were just discussing, with somebody doing Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, the other person doing Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and leaning
been the
a
norm.
lot on shared drives like Google Docs, for
Yep.
example. Some of them having a shared email address, so
Yep.
like second AD at blah blah blah. You know, and at the most basic level, you know, Yolanda works Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Her number is this. Michelle works Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Her number is this, in the signature of your email, so everybody knows
Yeah.
who to. And having that kind of fixed structure is very useful. For example, if you have children, if you have to wrangle childcare. So that's kind of been the way that we've kind of done that, which has been really useful. And I think a lot of people have found that really, really helpful, because they're getting 2 days off to themselves. But we've also been talking a lot with Carlos in Berlin, who has used job sharing in a really interesting way.
Split shift.
And maybe Yolanda, you can talk.
I'm big on split shift.
Yeah,
because for me the key is to have a rest when I'm working. It's just, for me, it's a rest thing.
You want to work every day, but you don't want to work
because I don't want to lose information, so I quite like the idea of split shifting.
So can you talk me through exactly how, I mean, Carlos's split shift thing works? Because he also, which I think is interesting for you, he also uses it as a way of almost mentoring a less experienced second, right? So
well, there has been. So, but first of all, I have heard from the split week second ADs that it does work as well. So they were very good about sharing the information online. So they were fine. They didn't lose information. But for me, I guess I just want to know what's happening every day. I guess, is that control freak? I don't know, but I just want to be there.
We're all control freaks in
But
this
I
industry,
just want to be able, whilst I'm. It's just a choice whilst I'm training, because I'm sure that once I'm trained, I could potentially do split weeks, or I could do full time, because I might find a way of streamlining my work and being able to sleep 6 hours, a night or something, which I could cope with. But so the split shift is basically the handover happens at lunch. It can happen with the director, according to Carlos. I'm quoting from my interview with Carlos. We have a very long PDF, which if anybody wants to read it, by all means, you can contact me. And I can send the info pack through the AD Guild. So they meet up at lunch with the first AD. They do the handover there, and it's a very good way of raising the first AD. So what Carlos discovered, he didn't do it because he has his own job share partner, but he did, as the job sharing started spreading in Berlin. He then had a colleague who was a very experienced second, and he had a very experienced third who stepped up to second. And so she dealt with the morning, which was more prepping.
Yeah.
And then the experienced second came in the afternoon and perfected the call sheet.
So by the time the afternoon shift comes in, they've basically got the structure of the call sheet. They've got the kind of preliminary.
Yeah, exactly. They've been doing all that, but they've also been doing something which is a lot less stressful for a trainee second.
Yeah.
And then when the stress comes in, which is in the afternoon, when there's the changes and all that, at least the experienced second can take that on. So that was a great way to ease a training second AD into the role in a very good way.
Interesting. And I think they were both doing sort of 8-hour shifts, I guess. So the production was getting, a really full day, but without having to pay the overtime, which is the way that Carlos, I think, is hooked in, because there's no funding, no Screen Skills funding in Berlin.
No, what they did is they did forfeit the base third.
Yes. And take those,
But they have a base run and a base third, I think, in Berlin, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
So they forfeited the base third
to pay for it.
To pay for the extra. Yeah, because obviously splitting the salary is not the great part, but that's thanks to Screen Skills and Warner Brothers. We've had the funding, especially both
Yeah, so
I
we can
mean,
tell you about that now, actually, because that's interesting. So we've spoken obviously about the Screen Skills job sharing program, which
hmm
is in its fourth, fifth year.
hmm
And excitingly, this year, for the first time, it's always been focused on high-end TV, but for the first time, their features, their film department has started to trial a few placements on features, which is very exciting.
hmm
But that was very much inspired by Warner Brothers Crew HQ
hmm
out of Leavesden, who um, Leavesden are doing an awful lot of good work about kind of sustaining workforce, nurturing a really kind of high caliber level of crew. And
hmm
they saw job sharing as being a really great sort of intervention, I don't know, for mid-level
hmm
crew. And so we've been working with them for a year, and we'll be working for them again next year to put together job share pairs for production specifically out of Leavesden or out of Warner Brothers.
hmm
So yes, seeing how this can work on a feature as opposed to a high-end TV drama has been really interesting. And yes, one of our pairs, they worked on a film called Wind of Change, which is the Scorpions biopic rock and roll. And that was a really interesting one. And maybe we can talk about it a little bit. But it was, what do I say? So on the Wind of Change biopic that we placed a pair of seconds on, it was typically a bit of a scramble. It's always that thing where, okay, you're booked, you start on Monday. And so our pair, who weren't who hadn't actually chosen each other to be job shares, they'd both been with other people, but their pairs were working on something else, so they kind of came together quite last minute, and they really had to kind of scrabble to kind of find their system, find their way of working together. And when I talk about job sharing, it sounds like sometimes I'm aware that I sound like it's a kind of cure. Oh, it's so easy and it's curable, and you go in. It's hard
hmm
to job share, and I think particularly for ADs, because you have to be so detail focused, control freaks, if I would say so. It's very hard to relinquish control and to hand over and to trust somebody to do as good a job as you would, and to be able to go, I don't need to check my emails today because Yolanda's got it. I mean, that's hard, and it's
hmm
a real mind shift. We were talking about, the way we're bred to compete with each other, and suddenly undoing that way of working and kind of going, my success relies on the success of this person, so I'm really going to champion them.
hmm
That's a real shift. But these girls managed to kind of amazingly kind of pull it together, and they were supported by Crew HQ and by me, and it went really well, and the
Amazing.
production were
Oh,
delighted.
good.
So really excited
Mm.
to kind of have more of that on features as well. So yeah, so there is support there. I think that's kind of what I'm saying. So obviously Screen Skills doing a lot, Crew HQ, Warner Brothers doing a lot, Netflix are very interested, particularly to support job sharing, but particularly interested in ADs and production roles, and how what we can learn from second ADs to inform how production coordinators or production managers might be able to job share in the future. So
hmm
there is a lot of goodwill,
hmm
I think, out there. So which is very exciting. Uh, Sorry, I feel like I
I
went
know,
off on a
no,
rant.
it's I wanted to add it. I wanted to add also to the. I didn't explain all the methods of job
Yes.
sharing that because I didn't explain all of them. So you have the split shift. We have the split week. You can also job share by, like, if you're first. Nobody, hardly anyone believes that first ADs can job share, but I've heard some wonderful firsts talking about it and saying that it could be done by skill, and one could be completely focused on the safety of the crew,
Or
and
even
then the other one be on set, making sure everything's running smoothly forward.
that's
Um,
really interesting.
so one could be more like in the office. So there's all that kind of like by skill
Or even by block.
or by block or by
One
week.
person prepping for the
hmm
upcoming block and
Exactly,
almost
and
like
then the week. Yeah,
leapfrogging each other.
yeah. There's that. Like directors do it all the time, right?
Right.
Directors do it by episode, right? So I'm sure that first ADs could also, like, they do that in Canada. There's you know there's the um episode 1 team and there's episode 2 team,
Yeah.
and that's happening quite a lot over there, but it doesn't happen so much here apparently. Like, so, well, from what I've seen. So yeah, there's and I'm just trying to think. Like I said, it's a creative problem solving thing.
And
We can find, if we can work in the film industry and creatively problem solve constantly, we can also problem solve the way we job share, but in a way that it's seamless and that it just lifts your head of department and it raises your, and it just everyone is happy. And so far, I just keep hearing very good news from job shares.
it's been great. And what's been really exciting for me is that um, every job share is slightly different because every pair has different commitments, different needs. Every production has different needs,
Mm,
whether it's in studio or all over the place on
exactly.
location.
Yeah.
There's so every arrangement has to be tweaked and
Mm-hmm.
almost made bespoke for that situation.
Mm-hmm.
We've spoken a lot about, well, my background obviously as a parent
Mm-hmm.
in TV and film.
That's
The
huge. We have
majority
to
of
talk about parents. That's the
well,
biggest
the
reason. One
majority
of the
of
biggest
people,
reasons. Yeah.
exactly, majority of people I deal with are parents, mums specifically.
Mm-hmm.
But more and more we're getting people who you know they are they've burnt out. They'd
Mm-hmm.
like to work in a more sustainable way. They have a disability, a neurodivergency, or perhaps even they are doing a kitchen extension. Or, I spoke to one woman, she was in her mid-50s. She said, I've spent my whole adult life on set. I just want to eat a home cooked meal. I want to do a Pilates class and I want to paint my spare bedroom. And I thought, my goodness, of course, why
Mm-hmm.
not?
Mm-hmm.
And then I also think, you know, it has been a tumultuous few years. So more and more, we're also getting people coming to us saying, I love my career in TV, but I don't feel safe putting my mortgage on the back of work coming in TV and film because it has been very up and down. So, they want to work 3 days a week on TV and film, and then they want to have their side hustle, their second form of income on a Thursday and Friday, whether
Mm-hmm.
that's, your wedding photography business or your Etsy shop or
Mm-hmm.
whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
And that seems to me very sensible. So again, you when you're talking about how you're going to arrange your job share, you have to be very open with your personal needs and your boundaries, which is another reason why it's not always easy, because to be vulnerable to a colleague is something that we're not bred to do again, but it's essential. So a lot of the work that we do when we're talking to pairs and sort of training them how to do it is to kind of go, okay, let's look at what are your strengths and your weaknesses, what are your needs, what are your boundaries, let's talk about that openly, because only then can you get an arrangement that works really well for you guys? And then you come with that plan
Mm-hmm.
to your HOD, to the production, and go, this is our solution that we want to present to you, but be flexible enough to kind of go, okay, but the first says that works, but that's a bit tricky. So can we do it like this? So having enough flex built into your
Mm-hmm.
plan that you can also make it suit the needs of the production.
Mm-hmm.
So it's
It's just not losing confidence. I've heard second AD saying, getting a little nervous before doing a job share
yeah,
and saying, oh, they feel like they need to, and it's just a matter of understanding, like Carlos Fidel says, it's a matter of understanding that the job doesn't change, it just becomes online.
yes.
And it's just really that simple.
Yes, exactly. And trusting, we have this brilliant tech support now for these things, and
Mm-hmm.
in, costume they have things like sync on set, continuity apps or whatever that are so useful for
Yeah.
this kind of, so we have that
And we
support
have
available.
AI to problem solve.
You're a
I've been
massive fan
learning
of
a
it.
lot of. I've been learning, yeah, because I've got a cousin who is into all the latest technology. So he told me about AI
We need to get on
2 years
board,
ago, and
man.
I've been getting, I love it actually.
Yeah, exactly.
um,
But it's using this
hmm.
information, and that will.
Without obviously being careful with the um, discretion, obviously, because when you're talking to AI, you are talking into the public really. So you've
I
got to be
know
very careful about
they're
what one
learning
says.
from
But
us,
it's a
Yolanda.
great problem solving tool.
Incredibly.
You can just say, let's brainstorm without saying what production you're in or without saying anything about what you're working in. You can say, look, I have this issue. Let's brainstorm some ideas of how I could break through. I mean, that's just wonderful to have that through
Yes.
AI, I think personally.
Exactly. And I think, what you were saying about confidence was really interesting because I think
Hmm.
so often, because it, again, coming to this kind of
It's a new
survival of the
thing.
fittest,
Yeah.
you feel like you don't want to come with anything different or
Hmm.
any kind of additional thought needed.
Mm.
But, you know, job sharing is brilliant for keeping experienced people in. And I
Mhm.
think we've, over the last few years, we've all seen, well, you've seen
Yeah.
it yourself, how tricky it is to step up into a role when you're not experienced.
Mhm.
And actually, how important that keeping that experienced talent in the industry and allowing them to move up. So job sharing is a great tool for that,
Yeah.
to kind of, to keep that knowledge in the industry and not lose it.
Mhm.
Um, and then what I would say as well for people who might be feeling a little nervous about approaching it, when we first started this adventure into job sharing I think was seen as a sort of a charity hire, like a nice thing to do for the mummies. And since then, because it's taken off so much, and because now we have, 5, 6 case studies of how they're smashing it as
Mhm.
ADs, people are kind of going, oh, actually, if I've got a really busy, difficult, long job,
Mhm.
who are the people I want there? I want experienced, rested people who are going to make good decisions.
Mhm.
A
Yeah.
job share is the solution. So actually, people are
Absolutely.
starting to go. I've got HODs now who are actively looking to recruit job
Love it.
sharers because they realize the benefits of having two brains, double the
Absolutely.
contacts,
Mhm.
double that problem solving capacity, double the energy. What you were saying about that person coming in on the Wednesday and lifting
Mhm.
the rest of the team
Mhm.
is not to be
No.
underestimated. So I think, if you are looking to approach your HOD or first about, I want to do a job share, have that in you are coming with a solution with
Yeah.
loads of benefits. It's
Yeah.
not a pity, charitable thing
No,
that
it
they're
is.
doing. You
It's
should
a
so
yeah.
come in with that confidence and
And I
and come in with a plan.
mm. And I think the reason that it hasn't been spoken about so much is because of the taboo, the culture here,
Yes.
of sacrifice. And but I think the more we talk about it, that's how the more it's going to become more normalized. And
I wanted to ask you because I'm thinking back to that AD Guild webinar we did way back a couple of years ago now, and the fact that the seconds were all gnashing at the bit, and the first there
oh
was
yeah,
a hesitancy, a worry about. I think one, I can't remember who it was. One of the first said, "I worry about the visuals
yeah, the
of
optics,
asking, the optics of
yeah,
asking as a first
yeah. That was
to
in 2020. I think in
1, 2,
2022.
yeah.
Yeah.
And that idea that, by asking to job share as a first, are you looking like you're less committed,
Mm-hmm.
less able to do the
Mm.
job?
See, that's where I got a bit of a shock because I came with my Canadian mentality, and suddenly I heard this about the optics. I'm like, what optics?
Yeah.
You know?
But it's a real thing. But I wonder, obviously, this is where I show my lack of understanding, but I wonder if that might be changing now. The more we get seconds job sharing, the more it becomes a familiar concept. And as ADs, I think you're quite unique in that you work with so many departments quite closely.
Mm.
So you're seeing it happening in costume. You're seeing HODs of costume or makeup job sharing. Is that something that you think might be opening up for first? Can you see them
For first
for
ADs,
first starting to job
it's
share?
still very early days for first ADs. I mean, first ADs um, don't have as many hours work as a second. They
Hmm.
work a lot of hours, but it's not as in, like I said, second ADs, the role has become untenable. So,
Yes.
and there's been silence, they haven't been, or obviously there's been a lot of amazing seconds who love it and manage all the hours, obviously. But once they have experience, but there's been a lot of silence about how untenable the role
Yes.
has
Yeah.
become. And so there's more talk about it among seconds than there is on
For
about
first,
first, but at the
because you
same
think
time,
there's more need,
but
or
even so, a first can be, I think, if a first has a family and wants to, has small children and wants to support his
or her
partner,
partner, sure.
then it's a great way to, it's a great way to lower the pressure and have somebody else to share the responsibility, especially as they're responsible for the safety of the set. And so I think that's quite important to have somebody that's well rested. And I've seen
Absolutely.
when I trained as a second in the role I did as a crowd second, in that film, it was a very, very stressful film, and the first AD was not sleeping either. I mean, it would have been brilliant if he could have had a job share
Right.
and been able to fully rest, and I'm sure we would have had an easier shoot, thinking of everything, because he would have been a lot more rested. So, um,
So the need is there. They might not
mhm.
be doing mega long hours, but they're still doing long hours. Let's like, we're
Mm.
still looking at what,
Yeah,
10,
exactly.
12
Yeah,
hours,
yeah,
it
yeah,
might.
yeah.
So that's,
It's quite intense.
that's a
It's all
crazy amount of work.
encompassing. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think the need is there. And I think what I hope is that as we see it becoming a more of a normalized, familiar way of working, that perhaps so, and I have had calls with, chats with some firsts who want to do it. I just need like one, come
Yeah,
on,
yeah. We
one
just haven't
stellar
had it
pair
yet.
to kind
Yeah,
of give it a go. Because
yeah.
then when you have a case study where
Hmm.
they smash it,
There
then that gives
we
permission to
that's
everybody else.
exactly.
Um,
Yeah.
you know, and I think, talking about kind of challenges, misconceptions, I think optics, that's one. Um, we talk a lot, when I first started, there was a lot of kind of myths or challenges about this idea that job sharing wouldn't work. And, I see people, pairs who go and pitch and they come back with, one, it's quite often the money, oh, we can't afford to have a job share. We can't afford to have that handover. Screen Skills brilliantly has kind of taken that out of the
Mm-hmm.
equation.
Yeah.
But I think probably the biggest fear is about something getting lost,
Mm-hmm.
like a vital piece of information not being handed over, about, we've had things like,
But
also,
but but ADs know that information is the key part of our job.
well, that's what you
Therefore,
do.
yeah,
And you
therefore
handing
we just make
information.
sure it goes online. It goes on that Google Doc.
And that's kind of why I think it's really flown with second ADs,
Mm-hmm.
because you are made to
Mm-hmm.
job share. You are super organized and you are made to communicate vital pieces of information to a whole range of people
Mm-hmm.
and departments.
Yeah.
So, of course,
Yeah.
you are able to pass it on to one person who is your buddy. And actually, in response to that, when people say, "Oh, but what if something gets dropped?" I say, actually, you're less likely to have something get missed or forgotten because you have an extra pair of eyes
Mm-hmm.
on that work.
Mm-hmm.
So actually having a job share partner who goes, "Oh, Yolanda, what happened with that thing?" And you go, "Ah, yes, I've got it. This is what it is." Do you know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? Having an extra a person who's on your case
Mm-hmm.
is absolutely beneficial. So that's always my response to that. I've also had things like, "What happens if I like one of them but not the other?" Get that all the time. What if I like one half and not the other? And again, my response is, well, at least you like 50%. Like if it's one person and you don't like them, you're screwed. But actually, if it's, and I think
And that's why we encourage having a pool of job sharing ADs with the
exactly.
same style. And I do have a Google form that ADs can fill in, and we can match them with ADs who have a similar style. And that's why it's good to have a pool, because we can just help each other and jump, and just if it's not working with one production, then if you have a pool of seconds that you work with, um, that job share AD could go with another job share AD, and then you can have, it just.
And that's where this work that you've been doing, actually,
Mhm.
Yolanda. I mean, I thank the stars the day I met you, because you've been really great at kind of going, actually, what do we really need? And this idea, as you say, of a kind of a pool, a
Mhm.
community of ADs who
Mhm.
want to work flexibly,
Yeah.
means that, you know,
Again, they can join this job share. They can fill the job share form and join the pool through the AD
AD
Guild.
Guild,
Yeah.
exactly. But that's what's wonderful about that is, we always say that I always encourage non monogamy when it comes to job sharing, because when you're tied to one partner, you're kind of at the mercy of their schedule and their life choices. It
Mhm.
might be that they decide to move to Australia or to become
Mm.
an accountant, or actually they need the money of a full time
Or they have
job,
a
and
personal issue that they need to
they
deal
have a
with, a
personal issue,
family.
or they want to take something on full time.
Hmm.
By having a
A
pool,
pool.
then you can go, okay, actually, who's available in
Yeah.
September? How do our skills and preferences and experience line
Work
up?
with this particular project.
Exactly. And how do
Yeah.
they work for that project? So you're kind of
Hmm.
being able to kind of fit together to go for a particular role, a particular genre, a particular, type of thing. And suddenly you're opening yourself up. Plus you have different partners who can advocate for you to
Hmm.
different firsts,
Hmm.
It might be a first that's worked with you loads. They might not have worked with me, but maybe you can say, yeah, but I can vouch that Michelle's really good, and
Mhm.
suddenly you're opening up your contacts as
Yeah,
well. So
of course. It's a great,
it's a really
especially
exciting
during
thing.
dry spells
Oh,
in the
yeah,
film industry. I mean, we're
sure.
giving work to everybody. It's like the best thing.
Well, that's it, really. I mean, you're kind of doubling the amount of people who can work in a role. So you're
Mhm.
doubling the amount of jobs that are available,
Yeah.
which is, again, if we're looking at the sustainability of our industry, who knows what the future is for film and TV. It's all a bit hairy, but actually
It's
being able
improving.
to
It's getting,
support,
we've noticed a big difference this year.
yeah,
Yeah.
so being able to support double the amount of people by opening up
Mhm.
jobs to job sharing, that's very exciting. Um, I'm looking at our thing
Yeah.
where we're
What,
at.
what do we
I
still need
know.
to
Sorry,
say?
keep going.
Done really well, and I think you probably touched on
I think we
the.
haven't done challenges and
We
misconceptions.
did a
I
little
think you
bit.
did a little bit actually, but we can probably add
Yeah.
anything additional there as well.
Okay, and
Maybe more so from what I've listened to, challenging the mindset of like the traditional kind of perspectives would be good because I think the big question will still be for those that are reluctant.
So maybe I can talk about how. Remember that time when I put it into the chat? Remember that time
yes, yeah, yeah.
so there's me with my Canadian mentality, right? Not realizing the issue with the optics.
So let's talk about that. So
Yeah.
the optics, as much as we're moving the conversation forward and we're beginning to show that this is possible, it would be naive to think that every HOD, every first is fully on board with this concept of
Yeah.
job sharing.
Hmm.
So I mean,
We've
what
had a lot of resistance.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
what is that resistance, and what would be, I mean, from your perspective, what is the kind of way to pitch to address that kind of resistance and maybe change
That
hearts and
it's not,
minds?
as I've mentioned before, but that we're not revolutionizing the way we work. We're just, like Carlos said, making it work online, and we're not, it's also one of those situations where until you see it in your own production, you're not going to appreciate how the quality of work is incredibly
And that's the
improved.
exciting thing, because I think, when we started, we could see easily why job sharing was a good thing for the job sharers, but
Hmm. But
actually
it's both
it's
ways.
both ways, and we were getting, feedback from the job sharers, but also from their HODs, that actually by bringing two sets of experience,
Mm.
different experience, and in a good pairing where you can challenge each other and
Yeah.
collaborate, you're getting a better quality
Yeah,
of
and
work.
and also, we were for a time there was some concern about how would the crew take it, because obviously dealing with the
Yes.
assistant directors is their source of information, the center, and how would the crew take it? And so far, all the interviews I conducted, they all said the crew were almost jealous. There were a lot of crew were jealous.
Yeah.
There was a little bit of he said, she said, so that helps when when the ADs are very experienced and know, but there was a little bit of that going on, but at the same time, the people have really taken it on and loved it, because obviously why wouldn't they, if the quality of work is improving and it's much better, and you can see and you have a rested
Yeah.
AD who's fully listening to you, why would the crew not, love it
I
and
mean, I do
even feel
think
jealous?
I love that. I mean, but that's great, feeling jealous. Okay, maybe if you're feeling like, why can't I do it? Well, then maybe explore how you can. But I
Mhm.
think one
Just
thing
having,
you,
oh, and the other thing before,
yeah,
oh, sorry to
no,
interrupt you.
go.
But the other really big thing is it's not about, again, not a revolution. It's only about working online, and it's not about changing fundamentally the way we work. It's about having the option
Yes.
of full time when you want to and job share when you need to.
Yeah, exactly. It doesn't mean that the floodgates are going to open and
Mm,
everybody's going to want to job share.
no.
It doesn't mean that once you've job shared, you can only
And
job
if
share.
everybody job shares during dry spells, and great,
I mean, I would love that.
then we're all working, right?
But I do think it's interesting when you talk about how it affects the team. I think it is important, if you are an HOD and you're bringing a job share into your team, to think about how the rest of the team is structured around that job share to support them. So perhaps you have a really experienced third,
Mm-hmm.
for example, underneath that job sharing pair
Mm,
of seconds, who
yeah,
can act as that extra layer of glue.
absolutely.
That's the kind of thing that you need to think about.
Mm.
Um, if you're nervous about bringing something, go, actually the structure, sorry, actually the structure around this pair is really sound, so there's so little room for error. when it comes to sort of changing hearts and minds, particularly of first or maybe of
We just need
directors, I think just more case studies, more talking about
we
it,
need courage.
more courage, and people, if you're listening to this and going, oh, I'd love to job share, but I could never do it, start having the chats. That one of the things that I always say to a pair is, when they're thinking about embarking on this journey, is start by having conversations with friendly firsts, for example, who know how good you are, who know you're not messing around, and listen to their concerns and work together to kind of go, okay, I can understand what your concern would be on that. What can we do to address it, and get them invested in your journey? I think, when I was working in telly and I had my two girls, I didn't want to show that I had children almost. I would kind of, when I had to leave, I would pretend I was going to the toilet and then just like skulk out. But that wasn't doing anybody any favors. It's about leaving loudly. It's about going, I'm job sharing because of this, and this is all the benefits it's bringing me. Making it a normal, familiar concept,
Mm.
taking that fear out of it. I think that's the way we change hearts and minds. We open people's eyes to the benefits
Mm-hmm.
that it can bring. And then,
Mm-hmm.
and then if we get some first job sharing, man, sky's the limit.
It's going to happen next year.
It
Yeah.
has to happen.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's absolutely right. So how do we move this conversation forward, Yolanda? We've been working together for a good few years.
Well, I remember once when we started the conversation and we said, let's just keep talking about it. And I remember I think I'm really grateful, because I really believe that in my WhatsApp group of ADs, they really started talking a lot about it, because I noticed a huge difference from going to events where nobody knew about job
Nobody's heard
shares
about
and
it.
I had to explain what it was, to suddenly 1 year later everybody knowing about job shares, and I just remember noticing that huge shift in a year.
Yeah.
And I thought, it's because we've been talking a lot about it. It's been, everybody can do their bit. Everybody can just
But that's
have a
key.
conversation.
Everybody doing their bit is key,
Mhm.
and I think for real,
Because we need to normalize it, because it's just, if we talk about it, if we keep not talking about it. Sorry, I'm interrupting.
no, you're absolutely right.
But it's just as simple as spreading the word.
But I think what you said there was
Absolutely.
really key, where everybody doing their bit. It's not, I think most people I speak to are on board with the idea that we need to change the way productions work, that we
Mhm.
can't sustain a healthy, happy, diverse workforce
Mhm.
with the way that we are working. But in order to make that change, it's not enough as an employer, as an HOD, as somebody leading a team. It's not enough to be nice. It's not enough to be supportive. You have to take action. You have to do your bit. And whether that is, opening your mind, taking that chat with a job share pair. You don't have to employ them if you don't think they're right for the job, but just opening your mind and discussing with them, okay, how could that work? Or even thinking, okay, how can I structure my team that limits the impact of hours on that? It's all very well going, I love my team. I really support my team. I think they're great.
Mhm.
It's that next step of what can I actively do, taking time to think. It's hard. We know how busy everybody is, but taking some time out to think about what can I actually put in place to physically support my team. Thinking, do you know what? That second was brilliant, and she had to leave 5 years ago, and she was my best second I ever worked with. And when she had a baby, she had to
Absolutely.
leave. I
Absolutely.
wonder
Yeah.
if I talked to her and said, "Have you heard about job
Yeah.
sharing?
You could get her
Maybe I can
back.
bring her back."
Or him.
Or bring him back.
Mhm.
Exactly right. And
Mhm.
it's that active
Mhm.
addressing of the situation. I'm everybody does their best. Everybody
Mhm.
works so hard in this industry, and everybody knows that supporting the team is the key. And we're very loyal to our teams.
Mhm.
But being kind and being supportive and being loyal isn't enough. You have to take action.
Mhm.
And I think, and be brave. You said
Courage.
the word courage earlier, and I think it's for people doing the employing, bringing on the crewing up, to kind of open their mind and go, actually, is there another way we can do it?
There's a beautiful saying by Apollinaire. It says, "Come to the edge," and the person says, "No, but we'll fall." And it's like, "Come to the edge," and again, they're like, you're crazy. We're gonna there's a cliff edge, and the booming voice says again, come to the edge, and they came, and they flew.
Yes. And the view was beautiful.
And the view is beautiful. And I remember reading that saying in so many years ago, and I have stood by it. And it really, you really do fly,
Yeah. Yeah.
because it's not literally a cliff, right?
Yeah.
But it's
Yeah. Yeah.
it's emotional
But we used
opening,
to
coming out of your comfort zone, and it's about, so it really does. It's an amazing way to grow and an amazing way of living.
absolutely. And there's so many opportunities for growth and for learning from each other. I mean, I could go on about the benefits of job sharing forever. And what I would say is, if you have been piqued, your interest is piqued by this chat, there are so many more sources of information, resources that are available to people. So obviously, you can come to my company's website, which is realtimemedia.co.uk. We've made a job sharing
Bible, I love
which
it.
has case studies in there. You're
Mhm.
very welcome to have a look at it. Yolanda, if you're an AD and you're interested, get in touch with Yolanda through the AD Guild. AD Guild doing lots of brilliant work to support this as well.
Absolutely.
I would say, talk to Screen Skills, talk to Warner Brothers Crew HQ, talk to Beck 2 Vision if you're up in Scotland. They're doing a lot of good work up there. There are so many people really kind of getting behind this. And so, and you might have noticed I'm a massive nerd about it. So we're always happy to chat about it.
Yeah, we are. Yeah, we could stay another couple of hours, keep talking, couldn't we? I
I
mean,
know, exactly.
so-
So I think, the resources are there. Industry, you got to step up, HRDs step up, take a chance. And because it's a really solid, practical, workable, and successful way
mhm.
of keeping that brilliant talent.
And I'll keep repeating it. It's about quality.
Yeah. Thank you so much for joining us today for this podcast. Thank you so much to the AD Guild for hosting us.
Absolutely, yeah. Thank you.
And please do be in touch with us for information and resources. Yolanda, do you want to tell them how to get in touch with you?
Absolutely. So the best way to get in touch with me is to contact the Assistant Directors Guild, and I can send you an information pack with interviews of second ADs who have job shared, and you can get into all the method and details and how it's been done and how you could do it. And please talk about it.
Brilliant.
That's your little bit that everybody can do.